Hello. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? I actually get to say welcome to Through Lucy's Lens weekly videos where I go somewhere interesting and hopefully you'll find it interesting too in my living room. I'm not anywhere very interesting at all. I'm in my living room at home. I was thinking, what would I like to do this week? I was going to make the video about Annie and Emmy. And I thought I wanted to do a live for absolutely ages. So I thought today's the day. I make my decisions very last minute. As always, it was a decision about 5 hours ago. I messaged Sharon, who is the moderator for the channel. And I said, Sharon, are you free at 8 o'clock? I'm going to do a live. And thankfully she is. So a big warm welcome to Sharon too, who is moderating in the chat this evening. So hello to all of you. I have finally got round to doing a live, not only doing a live, but working out the technology to do the live too. So a warm welcome to you. Oh my goodness. Oh, can you see this? The cat. The cat has decided to make an appearance, and I don't think I've seen him for days. Anyway, a big warm welcome to all of you. Hello to everybody in the chat. I can't believe that there's actually people here. I actually joked with Sharon earlier that it was probably going to be me, Sharon, and the cat, but we've got me, Sharon, and the cat, and a lot of you too. So a very warm welcome. Can I just check before I start that you can see me and hear me okay? Before I start talking about the lovely Annie and Emmy, I want to make sure that you can actually hear, so I'm not repeating myself. If you just let me know if you can hear me, that'll be cool. Yes, awesome. All right then. So hopefully some of you watched my video last week about Haden Hill House. And as you know, I just love finding these smaller, more hidden museums because they're more a challenge for me to research, because often there isn't much to go by, and I enjoy being able to really dig into the records. But also I just love to showcase them because I feel so lucky that I get the chance to do that. You know, there's an amazing community of people here that all love history like me, and I go along with my camera and I can show these places, and it's really important to me. And the main question that came up as I was going through the comments, hello everybody. Hello. Yes, it will be. I haven't been talking long, but this will be up on the channel to watch for anyone that wants to watch it as well. One of the main questions in the comments, as you know, I read every single comment. I love your comments. Was what happened to Annie and Emily or Emmy? And at that point, honestly, folks, I didn't know. I hadn't got a clue because none of the information that I could find was about them. The story ended in 1922 when George passed away, and then it was very scant. There was lots of information about how Sandwell Council took on the building, what happened to the building during the Second World War when it was used to billet people who had become homeless. And then there was a lot of information about the regeneration of the site, which was fascinating in itself. And a little bit of micro history that I didn't mention in the video is, I don't know if any of you remember in the 80s and 90s what was called the YTS scheme. It was actually young men and women on the YTS scheme that did the renovation for Haden Hill House. So another little nugget of information for you. So this week I have been spending my time trying to find out more about Annie and Emily. Now, if you didn't watch the video, Haden Hill House was lived in by a man called George Haden-Best. When he moved into the house in the late 1880s, he was a bachelor, and he came across, he brought these two young women who were about 16 at the time into his home as his wards. These two young women were from, I don't want to say they were from a poor background, because what I found out, they were in large families, but that was quite normal. But they were large families, but they were kind of working families, but they weren't destitute, okay? They weren't destitute. However, they were from religious families. And what George did is he was interested in providing education about religion. He was a religious man, and in particular, he was a Wesleyan. don't know if you've heard of Wesleyans, but it's a kind of denomination of Protestantism, really. And as part of George's mission as a Wesleyan, he was recruiting majoritively young women to become Sunday school teachers. And he started an association where he would go several times during the week and train women to be Sunday school teachers. And this is where he met Annie and Emily. And for whatever reason, these were the two girls that he brought into his home. In 1922, when George passed away, the house was sold. And then the records, we thought, for Annie and Emmy finished. So I'm going to tell you now what I found out about what happened after George passed away. And I'm going to try not to cry because I just think it's lovely. And this is why I get so excited about history and why I am happy to spend all my evenings with my head in the laptop as it is these days, or books. And yes, someone's just put George sounds like an amazing guy. And there were people in the comments that were suspicious about George's actions, because I think in this day and age, we might be a bachelor taking two 16-year-old girls to live in his home. It is fair for you to sit back and think, that's a little bit strange. And I must admit, when I was initially going through the records, I thought that too. But what's come out of it, I actually believe, and obviously we can never be 100% sure. I never had a conversation with him. I think his actions were actually honourable. I think it was about his religion, and I think it was about passing on opportunities to two young women who he felt could move the faith forward. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Annie first. Annie moved in with George at Haden Hill House around 1886. And at that point, she would have been about 16. And we don't find much about Annie then until, let me get my document up because I don't want to be giving you any false information. I found out that Annie actually married in 1904. And she married Dr. John Shaw, who was a local physician. And actually, she remained at Haden Hill House, but after the death of George Best's old auntie, Mary, they moved in next door to Haden Old Hall. George allowed them to move in and start their family in the hall next door. So that's what they did. They had two children. And by 1922, when George died, I found an article that noted in a local newspaper that the ceremonial key to Haden Hall House, when it was given to Sandwell District Council, was given to John Shaw, who was the husband of Alice. So that shows to me that Alice and John were still very much involved with Haden Hill House, and they were there until George passed away, and also after the sale. Like I say, they had two children. They had two boys. And after 1922, in the 1921 census, they are at Haden Hall. But after 1921, of course, we don't really have any other public records until 1939. But sadly, it seems that Alice passed away in 1934, just quite young in 1934. Alice, however, during that time, when she left Haden Hall, continued with her artwork. And if you go to the Sandwell Museum's collection today, you can still see the paintings that were done by Alice between 1871 and 1934 in the museum. So she left a legacy. We don't know much about Alice after that, but she passed away in 1934. And the fact that she was able to carry on with her art, the fact that she married a doctor, probably reflects to me that she continued to have a comfortable life. Couldn't find any will to state if George had left any money directly to John or Alice, but the fact they were handed the ceremonial key to the house when it was passed to the public suggests to me that they still had an involvement. So that's Alice. Next, I'm going to move on to Emmy. And I don't know why, but when you're researching people, you tend to find some people more interesting than others. And I got a bit hooked with Emmy. She's a very interesting woman. So she was the other lady, the other young girl that moved into Haden Hill House in around 1886. And again, she would have been around 16. She had also come from a large working class family, and there she lived with George. I like Emmy. I like Emmy a lot. Emmy's actual name, which is why it was a bit of a pain to find records on her, was Bertha. So in her census records, her birth records and everything else, she is Bertha Emma Bryant. So once I found that, I was then able to move forward and actually found out what happened to her. So she was called Emmy or Emily, which we now know because her legal name was Bertha Emma Bryant. She must have chosen that middle name to become her nickname. Emmy was modern for her time. She liked to travel, she wrote diaries, and she was an avid photographer. She was one of the first women in the area to have a camera and took lots and lots of beautiful pictures of Hales Owen. There's even photos of her in at waterfalls. And the picture that I have used in the thumbnail for this video is Emmy and Alice on the lawn at Haden Hill House. And you can see from that picture, they're modern. One of them's lying on the grass. They're modern women. And I think Emmy was very, very interesting. Now, Emmy did not marry. She remained a spinster for her entire life. And she remained close with George until his death. So she was living in Haden, the new Haden Hill House, up until George's death in 1922. And she continued to live with George all that time. We don't know what happened to Emmy once George died. There is no record of her in this key ceremony like there is with Alice. But that is probably because Alice was married and Alice had John there to be able to accept the key. I predict that Emmy was probably there too. But because of the circumstances, hate to say it being a woman, she wouldn't have been part of that ceremony. So I find Emmy or Bertha again in the 1939 register. And she is alive and well and living in a house called Linwood on the Birmingham Road in Kidderminster, which, if there's anybody local, is a lovely area. I couldn't find any records of this house called Linwood. I believe from looking at maps, there's now a new estate there. So I predict that it is now new housing. What that house was knocked down. But guess who she is living with, folks? This is why I love history. On the 1939 census, she is living with John Shaw, who is the widower of Annie. So that shows to me that they had remained friends. They remained in the same circle. John is marked on that document as a widower and Emmy as a spinster. So there's nothing going on there. They're just simply living together as companions. By this time, John is also marked on that record as being the chairman of the Association of Soldiers and Sailors for Staffordshire and Rowley Regis. So he's still he's still got place in society in that area, even as far as 1939. So Emmy is in this house living with John, Annie's widower, and she's also living there with a lady called Mary Shaw and 3 children. We can assume that the older 2 children were Annie's children. I don't know who Mary Shaw is. She may have been John's sister. She may have been a Shaw family member, or she might have even been his second wife, but I haven't been able to find out information about that. And because John is still a widower on the records, it's highly likely that she's a family member and not married to John. So I found Bertha, I found Emmy. And then we're going to talk about what happened when Emmy or Bertha passed away. She lived right until 1960. She had a lovely long life. And I managed to find an obituary for her in the local press from 1960. and it says, Bertha Emmy Bryant of Linwood, so she's still living at Linwood in Blakedown, passed away peacefully in her sleep in her 91st year. A service and burial is to be held at Blakedown Church, Saturday the 12th at noon, no flowers by request. And you can still go to see the grave of Emmy if you want to at Blakedown Church today. I also found her probate records, which was super, super exciting because from her probate records that she left in 1960, and if anyone's ever interested in finding wills and probate, you can find them as a public resource on the gov.uk website. But when she died, she was a very wealthy woman. So I'm going to read the probate to you. So Bryant, Bertha Emma of Linwood, Blakedown near Kidderminster, spinster, died on the 3rd of February 1960. Her £12,325, 11 shillings and 3 pence, that was a lot of money, folks, in 1960, was given to John Shaw, widower of Annie. George Harold Shaw, one of Annie's sons, who was now a doctor, and John Reginald Shaw, a farmer, the other of Annie's sons. So I think that shows me two things. Again, we can never be sure. I think it shows that George Haden-Best did leave money to the girls, because to have that amount of money down the line, at some point, she had been made a wealthy woman. And the fact that she left that money to not only John, who was the husband of her best friend and companion through her time at Haden Hill, she also left it to his sons too. So that shows to me that they were a close family, and that was Emmy's family. Annie, Emmy, George, all of those people from her past. So, folks, that is what I found out. That is what I found out. And that has made me really happy, actually, to hear that they stuck together, you know. And obviously, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know anything about trauma, but I feel if that time at Haden Hall had been bad, they probably wouldn't have stuck together. So I think that shows to me that George, he did good things. He took those girls, he gave them education, he gave them opportunities they never would have had if they'd have stayed with their parents. And, you know, sadly, Annie died young. I couldn't find her cause of death, but her, you know, she had her 2 lovely sons. And then the fact that Emmy then continued to live with the family was amazing. She could have moved right in with them in 1922, to be honest. But because those records are not there between 1922 and 1939, we don't know. So there you go. That is the story. If you ask in the comments, I will always try and provide. And yes, Anne, it's lovely to hear that they were looked after. And I must admit, whenever you enter into a period of research, you do get the butterflies. You do think, oh, goodness, what if it's not a nice, happy ending? You know, I do family history for people ad hoc, and often I come up against things that I think, goodness, I'm not sure how I'm going to approach this with the family members, because, you know, life is not linear, is it? Good things happen, bad things happen. So yeah, that is it. So I'm going to throw open the chat. This is the bit that Sharon's been dreading. Oh no, the questions are coming. I hope there's questions. If you've got any questions you want to ask me about the channel, the future of the channel, anything that's going to be happening, anything you like, have a think, because I am here to spend time with you for as long as it takes. Good evening, Jeffrey. So while you're thinking of questions, I'm going to tell you something really exciting. This is not an advertisement, by the way. This is just because I'm excited. So another one of the comments that I get quite a lot is, Lucy, do you know Professor Carl Chin? if you're a Brummie or someone from the West Midlands, you have probably heard of Professor Carl Chin. Okay, he is an eminent social historian. He is my favourite historian in the world, always will be. And because I was a geek when I was a teenager, I used to email him all the time and say, Carl, I want to help. Carl, I want to work with you. Carl really got on his nerves, I imagine. But bless him, he's a lovely man and he's always kept in touch with me. And he has got a new book coming out in the next couple of weeks. I believe it's out 28th of August. It's going to be available worldwide. And I have got a copy here. This is Professor Carl Chin's new book, and it's the Peaky Blinders, The Real Gangs and Gangsters. Now, I'm not going to give you much information about it because it has not come out yet. However, if you turn to, I've got to find the correct page, there is a chapter at the end of the book called Historical Reality. And at the back, there is a chapter about my great-great-great-grandfather who was a Peaky Blinder. And I've been helping with the research with Professor Carl Chin. Not going to give you any more information about that because he is coming onto the channel in a few weeks' time and he's going to let me interview him. And I am going to be like properly excited and giddy and silly because, you know, this is like my hero. So he's going to be coming on the channel to talk about this book in a few weeks' time. But if you see it while you're on your travels, that last chapter, you will see my name and you will see the history of my family in there. But I'm not going to give any more away about that, except my great-great-great-grandfather was a horrible man. That's all you need to know. But thankfully, the genetics has evolved, I think, since Arthur Gardner. But yeah, just to let you know about that. Right, I'm going to go into these questions. I'm so glad you've got some. I was worried I was going to see the tumbleweed going across the stage, like, oh. All right, let's have a look. Thank you for your thanks. You know, I'm going to answer a question straight up. My dream is to be able to do history full time. And it is a dream because you're probably aware that there ain't many full-time historians. It is usually a passion that turns into a part-time job if you are lucky. But the research is just what I love doing. I am happy to sit for hours and hours and hours doing the research. I love it. And when you find out stories, oh, it's just the best. Right. Next question. Don't know your name, but I'm going to read out your tag name, DWGB. Nice for you to be here. How do you manage to fit doing all this in with the job as well? Well, that is a very good question because I don't know either a lot of the time. I work full time as a tutor and I tutor online, which is why I'm very comfortable with being on Zoom calls, team calls, talking to myself on the camera. And I teach people who have been unemployed for a long time and looking at employability and getting them back into work. I used to be a history teacher in secondary schools, but no, not anymore, because I just prefer not being in schools these days. I fit it in because I love it. I think if there's something you believe in and you really want to do it, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there are some days when I finish work and I think I just cannot open my laptop again tonight, I'm done. But then there's other days where I'm so hyper fixated, particularly like to give Annie and Emily as an example. As soon as I finish work, I take Rupert for a walk and I'm back on the computer and I'm good for it. And in regards to visits, what I tend to do is I will do my visits in one chunk. So I'll take all my annual leave from work goes on visits for the channel. And I'm good with that because I can still get rest. Visiting places for me is restful. So you heard it here first. My next visit for the channel is Orkney in Scotland. I've got 2 weeks annual leave and I am going to Scotland for the first time. So I'm visiting Glasgow, Inverness, Stromness, Orkney and Sanday on one of the most northerly Orkney Islands, and you're not going to believe where I'm staying. I can't believe where I'm going to be staying. But how do I fit it in with a full-time job? I just get on with it. And I think Sharon will tell you, who's my mod, I'm quite good at being focused on things. But there are days when I'm tired and I don't want to do it. But I do it because I love it, and because, you know, your support, the support that you all give me on the channel, just, it keeps me going through the hard times. So I hope that answered that one. Let's have a look at the next one. Let's have a look. Oh, Janesco, what is the spookiest place you have ever visited? Gosh, you know, the spookiest place that I've ever visited, I wasn't actually doing the channel at the time, and it was a place called Croom Castle, I believe it's called, and it's owned by the National Trust, and I think many of you may have seen from videos I've done in the past. I was brought up, I was a National Trust kid. That's what we did at weekends with my parents, and we went to one called Croom Castle, and my mum is quite tuned in. We walked into this room and my mum said, I don't like it here. It's horrible. It's horrible. And it was just cold and uncomfortable, and I don't want to use the word spooky, possibly sad, I guess, more than spooky. And also that prison in Norfolk when I went in on my own. But I'm not sure that was spooky. I think that was my mind going overdrive, because I'd taken myself into a prison on my own with a key, with no backup, no phone, just my camera. And I remember thinking, every time I opened a cell door, thinking, oh, if there's somebody behind here, you're dead, Lucy, because you haven't even got your phone with you. I'd left it with my husband. So yeah, so that's that question. Okay, next one. Jantine, will you keep focusing on Britain, or are there going to be videos abroad in the planning, like the one in Northern Ireland? Well, Scotland is next. I've never been to Scotland. How terrible is I have actually. I went to Scotland. I went to Glasgow for one night many years ago for work. That's it. But I'm going to be spending 2 weeks in Scotland. Regards overseas, that is my dream. As you know, the channel started with the living museums. There's still a lot more I want to visit in the United Kingdom, and I will be. But I would love to visit the original living museums that are mostly in Scandinavia. There's one near Copenhagen, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. There's also an incredible one in Germany. The original kind of folk museums that were the inspiration for the museums that are now in the UK. Oh my goodness, I would love to go to the Tenement Museum in New York. I have been, not for the channel, Ellis Island. So many of you tell me about places in Australia. I mean, that would be my dream. You never know. But majoritively, I'll be still sticking with the United Kingdom, because I work full time. That's the way I've got to be able to get there within a weekend. There is a museum called, I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, I think it's Skagen, in Scandinavia, which I have worked out I can do in a weekend if I get a very, very early flight and a very, very late flight, and then go back to work on Monday. So there is some. So yes, mostly England, because that's where I live and I need to be able to get there. But I would travel in the world, and showing you other places would be my absolute dream. And maybe meeting some of you along the way, because there's nothing better, is there, than a local guide. Can't get better than a local guide. Let's have a look. That's a really good point from Jeffrey, actually. I'm just getting to that in the chat. Emmy's house from 1939 could have been lost during the war. It could have been. Yeah, absolutely. That's what's so complicated, isn't it, about history, and we can't fill in those gaps. And I am not the sort of historian at the moment. I mean, I doubt I ever will be, because I think you're all aware of my ethics, that I am very much into privacy, and I don't think I'll be contacting family members ever unless they reach out to me. But that's a good point, Jeffrey. That could definitely be the case. Tasha's put, I thought you were related to Carl Chin. No, I'm not related to Carl Chin. I went to the same school as his children. And my dad knew him. My dad knew Carl Chin, but I've just always been a fan. And my nan used to get the Brummagem magazine every single week, and I used to go round to my nan's to read it and that was like when I was 10, 11, because I just always loved social history. All right, let's go through. Yes, I would love to go to the Netherlands, Jantine. I mean, I just love traveling. I absolutely do. Let's have a look. All right, West Country Mudlarks. If you don't already subscribe to West Country Mudlarks, look them up, because they have got me back into my love for mudlarking, and I've actually started taking my niece and nephew bottle dump digging again, because I've always wanted a blue poison bottle and I've never found one. So their channel's amazing. But their question is, what time would you live in if you could choose? You know, that's a really difficult question, because I look at everything in two ways. Because if you think of what we've got now, right, we've got a welfare system, we've got antibiotics, we live in the Western world, first world, second world, whatever world country. So would I actually not want to live now? Probably not, because if I think of maybe some of the illnesses I've had in my life, I probably wouldn't even be here. However, if I had to choose a time to go back to that I would like to know the answers to, that is a cat in the background. I would like to go back to 1536, and I would like to be a fly on the wall in the prosecution of and demise of Anne Boleyn. So that's the answer that I'm probably always going to give. That is something I've studied and pontificated about and obsessed about since I was about 6. I would love to be able to write her story. That's definitely one of the answers for that one. And I'd like to go back and see where my mum lived and my dad lived. Oh, anywhere. A time machine would be wonderful, wouldn't it? So let's have a look. Someone's asked about the online tutoring. I won't tell you too much information because obviously privacy, but I teach employability skills, really. I help people who are unable to find the employment that they want, the jobs that they want. So I teach everything from maths, English, ICT, confidence building, conflict resolution, resilience. My strength as a teacher is kind of rallying people up and confidence. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I do that full time. So I'm always on the computer talking to myself. That's why I'm all right at it. All right. Oh, my cat's name is Pumpkin. Hang on. Pumba. Hello. This is Pumpkin. I had 2 cats, and very sadly, one of my cats, Gwen, had to be put to sleep last week. But she was 23, so she'd had a lovely long life, and it was horrible. It's always horrible, isn't it, to say goodbye to one of our pets? But she had the best, most spoiled cat in the world, and yeah, she was brilliant. I'll get Rupert for you in a minute as well if you want to see Rupert. I'll let him do a little. Let him do a little cameo at the end of the live. Yeah, I just love the Tudors, Anita, too. I really do. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Let's have a look. No, I don't want to hear how many you've got. That'll just make me really jealous. Tasha, I don't know about the adverts, actually. This is all new for me. I'm like, I don't know. I just press next. So I can only apologise if that's happening to you. I'm sorry. Dale has asked if I've thought about visiting some more workhouses. I love workhouses. There is one in Norfolk that I wanted to visit last time I visited Norfolk, but unfortunately it was closed. We drove all the way there, as happens sometimes, and it was closed. Grenville Farm and Workhouse, I think it's called, but I will go back. In regards of the workhouses, there aren't that many, because if we think about workhouses and the connotations with them, and they're often brushed under the carpet. There is a place I could show you in Birmingham called it's called the Arch of Tears, And I don't know if there's anyone local to Birmingham, but Selly Oak Hospital used to be a workhouse. And the Arch of Tears was so called because as you walked under this arch to enter the workhouse, you could possibly be upset or crying. That's still there. There was a campaign to keep that because they were going to knock it down. And people were like, no, we shouldn't be knocking down our history. We shouldn't be brushing these things under the carpet. So I could show you that. But in regards to videos, and somebody's asked me, how do I choose where to go? It's 50-50 really. Some places a bucket list. So when I went up to Northumberland, for example, and I went to Beamish, I'd wanted to go to Beamish since I'd seen it on Blue Peter when I was a little girl. Other times I wake up one morning and Haden Hill House was actually one of these days. I just thought, I'm bored. I want to go out. I just do a quick Google search. I think, okay, we'll go and have a look there. And it's just amazing. So in regards to where I go, some of it is planned, some of it isn't. And you know what's really, really interesting? A lot of the videos that aren't planned, they're usually the ones where I've got the dog and it's all a bit chaotic, are the best stories. And it's amazing. But I also can't wait to go back to Beamish because when I was at Beamish, even though I was there for 2 days, I didn't even get into the Victorian town. I only got into the 1960s, 50s bit because it was just so massive and amazing. Are these chats going to be a regular feature? I mean, if you want. I've been putting it off for ages and I'm actually really, really enjoying it. But maybe once a month, every 6 weeks, something like that. Because it's nice for me as a creator to have a break because the editing takes a long time. I'm not complaining, but it's just nice to be able to speak to you live, really, and get your feedback and your questions. Janesco has asked, have you visited the Weald and Downlands Museum? Oh, my goodness. You do not know how many times we've attempted to get there. Going to story time. Get your hot water bottles. Not that we need one at the moment. We were heading there last Saturday, and the exhaust fell off my car. So we didn't get there. But I am desperate to go to the Weald and Downlands Museum. I am desperate to go to the Chiltern Living Museum. I don't know if you know, well, of course you know I love prefabs. There's a prefab at the Chiltern Museum, which was the one that they used. Was that Weald and Downland? I don't want to get it wrong. They used one in Call the Midwife. I don't know if you know the episode where the brother and sister live together in interesting circumstances. So I'm desperate to go there. But there are so many hidden museums in the United Kingdom. We are so lucky. So many have no website, no opening times. I found a place in Wales, desperate to go, can't find out when it's open, but I can't risk going all the way to Pembrokeshire for it to be closed, but I might anyway because you'll love it. It's a row of workers' cottages in Wales. So I tell you what, so much to do, so many hours in the day. All right, I'm going to go through some more questions. Let's have a look. I'm sorry about the adverts, folks. I honestly didn't know. Next time I will do some more research to not have them. I'm sorry about that. All right. Have I thought about doing a tour of the Jewellery Quarter? For anyone watching that's not local, the Jewellery Quarter is an area in Birmingham which was known and still is known for making some of the best jewellery in the world, particularly gold and silver. There is a video on the channel about the coffin works, and there's also a video that in that same video I go to J.W. Evans Silversmiths, and I also go to the cemetery. However, if you want me to go back to the Jewellery Quarter, I can. I need to do Digbeth. I do definitely need to do Digbeth. And this is a nice segue to a question about, have I ever researched my own family history? You know, not enough, but there was a figure in my family that wasn't talked about and cast a darkness. And of course, when you know about a figure like that, you're just nosy and you want to know more. And that is actually the person that's in this book by Carl Chin, Arthur Gardner, my 3 times great-grandfather. And once I started researching him, it was quite easy because he was such a horrible person and there were so many news articles about him and everything else. He was easy to research about. But actually, one of the problems I have with my own family, and by the way, don't get your tiny violins out because a lot of us experience this. I come from a very working class background. My family were poor as church mice, as my dad would have said. So the records are scant. In particular, my dad's mom, she hasn't even really got a birth certificate. There's lots and lots of, I've tried, but because of the poverty and the fact that it just seems that half of them were never in when they were doing the census. You know, there's just so many gaps, but I have tried, and I would love to find out more. Definitely. Because it's nice to know who you are, isn't it? Let's have a look. Anne said she'll never thought of a question until it's too late. But travel would have been so different in the past. What's my favourite mode of transport? Boats. I've often wondered if I'm from Birmingham, and the family history that I found out, I had one of those DNA tests, which I probably shouldn't have done because now they're saying that they're a bit dangerous and stuff, aren't they? But majority of my DNA was English, little bit of Irish, but then a lot of German and French. And I'm not sure if maybe I came across on the sea at some point because I love boats. I love trains. The only ones I don't like is I don't like flying. But it's not as if I won't get on a plane because I will. I'll just get on with it. But I'd rather not fly if I don't have to. So when we're going up to Orkney, I could have got a flight from Birmingham Airport to Kirkwall. No chance. One, I want to take the dog. And two, we're getting about 6 trains, a hire car and 2 boats. But I'm good with that because I'm just far more comfortable doing that. All right, let's have a look. Yes, that's the one I want to go to, Jeffrey. Gresson Hall Farm and Workhouse, but it was closed when I went. Let's have a look. So if you've got any more questions, chuck them in now. I'm going to call Rupert because somebody's asked. Hang on, you're going to hear me shout now. This is where the brummy gutter snipe comes in. Rupert! He's not in here at the moment. Rupes! Deaf dog. Rupes! I'm going to go get him. I'll try. Come on, can see friends. Up. Oh, come here. Oh, here he is. He was being deaf. So this is Rupee Dupes here. He's not allowed in here usually, so he's getting a very nice treat. This is a treat for Rupert. No, you leave. Give a kiss. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. Here he is. Come by, lad. He's just on my lap now. He can't believe that he's here. He's like, what? I'm allowed in here? He has got a full belly. Yes, he's had his dinner. Do you know what he did today, folks? He stole half a leg of lamb off the worktop. So he does not need any dinner. I haven't been to Munster Castle, Julia, but honestly, every single time I get comments, I write them all down. So when you recommend places to me, I genuinely write them all down. And some of your recommendations, the Needle Museum, for example, was one, was thanks to your recommendations. Also, the some of the places that I went to Northern Ireland as well. Definitely. And yes, he is like a little lamb, isn't it? And do you know why I got a Bedlington Terrier? Because they are, a bit of boring history for you, they are a working dog, and they were kept by initially gypsies in the northeast to keep vermin off the encampments. We're going back to the 1700s. And the local gentry saw how good they were at keeping rats off the environment, so had them on their land. And also they were used by the miners in Northumberland for vermin down in the mines. So I wanted a dog that was not only sweet, because they are very sweet, they're lovely dogs, but also with a bit of social history. I love all dogs, but I wanted one with a nice working class history. And I tell you what, Rupert, if you were down the mines in Northumberland, you wouldn't be stealing half a leg of lamb off the worktop. But I adore him. See. Anyway, folks, I have taken 45 minutes of your time, and I actually think that is probably the longest I've ever gone. So I'm going to take one more question. I'm just going to say hello to Donna. Donna is in the comments. She's going to kill me. She's going to say, please, Rupert walks with Donna's dog. Donna's dog's called Dave. Is that not the best dog name in the world? And me and Donna have become friends through walking the dog. And she just mentioned she liked history. And I never really said anything about it because I'm a bit shy about my channel. I don't tend to tell people about it. And then she texted me and said, I've just seen you on YouTube. Oh my God. And now she's watching the channel because how about that? Worlds collided and we like the same things. And our dogs are having, as the kids call it, a bromance. They love each other. So I've got two more questions. Well, probably three now. I'll just carry on. Could you use your interest in history to teach children in another setting apart from a school? I mean, I could, and I would love to. In my past life, I have written a children's book. It was about something completely different. It wasn't about history, but I would love to. And I do love passing on snippets of history to children, my niece and nephew, for example. But if ever I was asked to go into a school and do an assembly about history, I wouldn't say no, and I wouldn't charge them either. So yeah, I could, and I would love to. Tina, sorry, you have said, will I ever go to Blakesley Hall? We got married there. Well, first of all, what an incredible place to get married. For those of you that don't know, Blakesley Hall is one of the original Tudor buildings still left in situ. We've got two in Birmingham. We've got one called Selly Manor, but that was actually moved to where it is by the Cadbury family. But Blakesley Hall over in Yardley is where it's always been. And I haven't been there yet because their opening hours are a little bit erratic. So the opening hours have never really fit when I've been able to go. But I'm hoping to do a video on Blakesley Hall and Selly Manor in the same video. So you can see the two Tudor buildings that are left in Birmingham because they're both really fascinating. And I don't know, I think when people think of Birmingham, they think Industrial Revolution forward. They don't think the fact that, obviously we've got Shakespeare just up the road. There has been things in Birmingham for many, many years. And I'm very, very proud of my heritage from Birmingham. Let's have a look. All right. Oh, no, you've got the dentist, Lorraine. We're all sending you our love and our... we're all, I don't like the dentist. So I will be thinking of you. And I hope it's number one, cheap, and number two, not painful. All right, I'm having a look. Scarabry. Oh my goodness. Dawn, I can't wait to go to Orkney. I've got such a long list now. It's just crazy. But I am a chatterbox, as you can imagine. Most people that do YouTube are, because otherwise we wouldn't be any good at it. But I just want to thank you all so much for joining me. And on a personal note, the fact that you tune in and support me and cheerlead me in what I genuinely love doing. I'm 45 now, and I can genuinely say, folks, that the past year or so doing YouTube, I've been the happiest that I've ever been in my life. And you are a part of that. So long may it continue. And one of these days, you will get me back on a plane. Keep sending through your recommendations. Keep sending me emails. Keep being awesome. And we'll do another live in about 6 weeks' time. But until then, we've got Orkney coming up. I'm gonna go to Blakesley Hall for Tina now. She's kicked me up the bum. Might go tomorrow, Tina, actually. Oh, no, I won't. My car's not fixed yet. Damn it. Cars. They're so good, but so annoying. No, thank you for what you do for me. You would not believe how happy I am. Everybody says that I'm happier since I've been doing YouTube. So thank you very much for joining me. This will now be posted onto the main channel. So if you've watched it as a catch-up, you have got concentration to listen to me waffle for 48 minutes. But so I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing. Get me out to the masses, Jeffrey. Then I'll be terrified, like, oh. But no, I would love it. Thank you all. Good night. good morning, good afternoon. I know you're from all over the world, and that blows my mind too. And I'll see you all soon. Keep in touch. See you soon. Bye bye.